Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing your favorite contemporary and dark romances of 2023. Alright guys, so I asked over on my Instagram for all of you to tell me your favorite contemporary and dark romance books of 2023, and you did not disappoint. I am so excited to check out some of these books. I will say there are quite a few books on here that I haven't read yet. However, I am very excited to pick them up in 2024. So if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all out of the way, let's talk about your favorite romance books. So first up we have Butcher and Blackbird, and I am so happy you guys love this book as much as I do. So this is definitely gonna be one of my top reads of the year. It is a dark, kind of like romantic comedy. We are following these two vigilante serial killers, and one day they have a chance encounter when they both go to kill the same person, and they decide they are going to have an annual meeting where once a year they will go to an undisclosed location and they will compete to be the first one to kill the serial killer in that area. And it's just so adorable watching these two people that kill people for a living try to interact with each other, and like they are so shy around each other. And while all these adorable moments are going on, there's like horrific violence going on in the backdrop. So there's one really cute scene where they kiss for the first time, but while they're kissing, they hear a girl that is screaming for her life as someone with a chainsaw is chasing her. And also there's accidental cannibalism, which I think is the funniest trigger warning in the entire world. But anyway, I love this book so much, and I love that you guys love it too. Next up is Garron Park, which is a dark romance, and I've heard nothing but amazing things about this book. I cannot wait to read it. But we are apparently following these two guys, Maddox and Devin, and they're kind of like rivals. That is until one day Devin gets very badly beaten by his father, and when he is searching for help, the only one he can find is Maddox. So while Maddox is kind of taking care of Devin and he sees him being vulnerable, they end up having this romance, and it goes from there. And I am so excited to pick this book up. And a lot of you said titles in the Boys of Tommen series, which is a phenomenal series. It is so emotional, it will make you cry, but it is so good. So I've only read the first two books in the Boys of Tommen series, Binding 13 and Keeping 13, and they are following Shannon and Johnny. So Shannon is this girl that is living in a very abusive household. Her father is an alcoholic, and she's being relentlessly bullied at school. So one day, her mother tells her that she is going to transfer schools, and on her first day at Tommen University, Shannon ends up getting hit in the head with a rugby ball, and then when she wakes up because she went unconscious, she sees Johnny standing over her, and it is their romance, and it is just so unbelievably good. So I am going to read the second two books, Saving Six and Redeeming Six, I believe, on during the month of December, and they are following Joey and Aoife, who we met in the first two books, and I cannot wait to read Joey's story. I know it is going to be so much more emotional, which I don't even know how that's possible because I ugly cried in book 2 of the Boys of Tommen, but apparently Joey's story is just even more traumatic, so definitely check trigger warnings, but I am so excited to finish this series. So there were a lot of Jennifer Hartmann books on this list, but the top one was Still Beating by Jennifer Hartmann, which unfortunately is the only Jennifer Hartmann book that I have DNF'd. So I definitely have to go back and reread that at some point. When I was reading Still Beating, I hadn't started reading dark romance yet, and the beginning of that book is very dark. So I think I would actually really enjoy it now. It was just at the time, I was like, what am I reading? But anyway, if you're unfamiliar with the plot of Still Beating, we are following this girl who absolutely hates her sister's fiance. However, something happens and she calls him to come pick her up at a bar. And when he gets there, both of them get kidnapped by a serial killer and are locked down in his basement where horrible things happen to them. And sometimes they are forced to do terrible things to each other. And then the rest of the book, which I did not get to, is their romance after being released or freed. So it sounds really good. A lot of people love this book. So I will definitely be trying to read it in 2024. And a few of you said the Naked Fisherman duet, which makes me so happy. I absolutely loved that duet. So it is an age gap forbidden romance. The first book, we are following this girl who was raised by her very conservative grandparents when her mother ended up going to jail. However, her mother has now been released from jail, and our main character decides she's going to live with her mother to try to get to know her. Now, her mother had already booked a trip prior to all of this, so when she gets there, her mother says, hey, I have to leave. I'm going to leave you in the care of Fisherman, who's actually her younger landlord. And it is our main character and Fisherman's romance, and it is so good. I love tabby romance. It is one of my favorites, especially age gap, and this one is absolute perfection. I will say you might be a little bit annoyed with the main character. She is very naive, and she was raised in a very conservative environment, so she is a little bit judgmental in the beginning. However, she really progresses and grows throughout this duet. So definitely, if you love age gap romance, pick up the Naked Fisherman duet by Jewel E. Ann. And next up is Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. So Sea of Ruin was actually the first Pam Godwin book I ever read, and I loved it. It is a dark pirate romance, and it is just so good. Also very dark, check trigger warnings. But we are following this girl who is being raised by her mother. However, her father was this revered pirate. So one day, our main character, Bennett, is racing to see her father, and something ends up happening that causes her to become an orphan. So Bennett decides she is going to become a pirate herself, and does. So she ends up being the captain of her own ship, and when the story starts, Bennett is running away from her pirate husband. We don't exactly know why, we just know that for some reason, she does not like her husband at the moment. But anyway, while running away from her husband pirate, she ends up being captured by a pirate hunter named Ashley, who is going to torture her for information to find out where her pirate husband is hiding. And the story goes from there, and it is a romance kind of between Ashley and Bennett, and other things happen, and it is just so good, but also really dark. Once again, check all of the trigger warnings. Most of Pam Godwin's books are pretty dark, but also completely bingeable. I think I read that book in one sitting. So highly recommend. And next up is actually a historical romance, and one of the only historical romances I've actually read. So it is The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne. I don't remember a lot about this book, unfortunately. I did give it 4.5 stars when I read it, but all I remember is we were following Farah and Dorian being one of these like reclusive, scary men, and then Farah, who is a recent widow, ends up being, I think, not forced, she's kind of like convinced to marry him in order for him to protect her. And they have, or he has in particular, a very dark and upsetting history. So I do remember that. Definitely check trigger warnings. But I did really enjoy this when I read this, and this is one of the only historical romances that I really want to continue with that series. And next up is The Right Move by Liz Tomforde. I've heard nothing but amazing things about this book, and the audiobook has finally been released, so I will be reading this very soon. But all I know about this is we are following an NBA player who has recently been promoted to captain. However, a lot of people on the team don't love this because he does seem like a lone wolf type character. Now, his sister has recently moved into town with her best friend, and he decides that he is going to fake date her best friend in order to make him seem more approachable, and things go from there. I typically don't love fake dating romances. However, like I said, everyone I know who has read this has given this 5 stars, so I am very excited to pick it up. And next up we have Happy Place by Emily Henry. So unfortunately, I haven't read this yet, but I'm pretty sure this is her newest release. So we are following these 2 people that were in a relationship for quite a long time, and they haven't told their best friends that they've actually broken up. So when it is time to go on vacation that they do every year, they decide they are going to fake that they're still in a relationship, and the story goes from there. So it sounds pretty good. Unfortunately, I haven't loved many Emily Henry books since I read Beach Read. Beach Read I thought was absolutely amazing, but everyone I've read since then has been a little bit of a letdown. So I don't know when I'll be reading this, hopefully soon, but if you are a fan of Emily Henry's writing, definitely check this book out. Next up is a dark mafia romance duet that I had never heard of, but now that I've looked at the synopsis, I will definitely be reading in 2024, and there is an audiobook. So it's Sinners Condemned, and apparently this is a dark, age gap mafia romance with a slow burn relationship, and I love all of those things. That's really all I know about the book, but all of those things are amazing, so I will hopefully be picking this book up soon. But yeah, I actually had 2 different people say that they loved this duet, and it has not been on my radar, so thank you guys so much for the recommendation. And next up, a lot of you said The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy, which I believe is a ice hockey sports romance. I am not the biggest fan of sports romances. However, I did read the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy, and I did really enjoy it, so hopefully I will like this series just as much. But this story is following a girl who really wants to become the captain of her ice hockey team. However, she is unable to do so. Then we're also following this guy who is the captain of his team. However, he has recently, or his team has recently merged with another team, so most of his players absolutely hate him. And on top of that, he is trying to get a coaching position, but he completely blew it with one of the other coaches. Now, the other coach happens to be the girl I just talked about's father. So they decide they are going to team up. He is going to help her become the captain of her hockey team, and she is going to put in a good word with her dad. And then I think a romance begins. But it sounds pretty good, and I will definitely be reading it in 2024. I love that a few of you said the entire Off Balance series by Lucia Franco, so that is also one of my favorite age gap romances. If you're unfamiliar with the plot of the Off Balance series, we are following Kova and Rhea. Rhea is this girl that has grown up her entire life wanting to become an Olympic gymnast, and she is almost there. Her father has found a coach who's actually a friend of his on the other side of the country who will train Rhea for the Olympics, and he will essentially become her guardian while she is training there. That coach is Kova. And slowly a relationship blossoms between the two, and it is so toxic. It is so messy. You will throw your Kindle and or book. However, their romance is so unbelievably epic. I love them so much despite the fact that it is the most toxic relationship I've ever read about in a book. But it is one of my absolute favorites. Definitely check trigger warnings and know that it is a significant age gap and there is some cheating and things involved. So yeah, check those trigger warnings, but I love the Off Balance series so much. And next up is In the Likely Event by Rebecca Yarros. So this is following two people that end up meeting on a plane, and then that plane ends up going down in the Mississippi River, and then they never see each other again. However, after years go by, the woman that was on the plane ends up becoming pretty high up in politics, and the man that was on the plane had joined the military and is now in charge of protecting her. So it's kind of like a right person, wrong time type romance, and it sounds pretty good. I have read a few Rebecca Yarros books in the past, obviously Fourth Wing, which I loved, but I have read some of her military romances, and some I really enjoyed and some I absolutely despised. So this could be hit or miss, but I am willing to give it a shot and will hopefully be reading this in 2024. And a few of you said The Bully by Sophie Lark, and oh my goodness, that is one of the best books ever. I love Dean so much. He is the perfect tortured hero that like slowly learns how to love, and that book is just epic. So if you haven't read it yet, you need to. But if you're unfamiliar with the Kingmaker series as a whole, we are actually following the children from the Brutal Birthright series by Sophie Lark as they attend Kingmakers, which is essentially like Hogwarts, but for Mafia. So you send your child there to learn how to do like really good Mafia things, like spies, poisons, things of that nature. So all of the books are following different children, and it is just such a fun series. I love everything that Sophie Lark writes. So highly recommend, and I totally agree. The Bully is by far the best in that series. And last up, a lot of you said this was your favorite book of the year, and it is also my favorite book of 2023. I have not had any other book even come close to eliciting the emotions this book did. It was just so unbelievably good, and that is Manacled by Senlin Yu. So Manacled is Handmaid's Tale and Harry Potter fan fiction. You can read it on the website Archive of Our Own. It is very dark, check all the trigger warnings, but it is essentially what would have happened if Voldemort won the war against the Order of the Phoenix and Harry Potter was killed. So we are following Hermione, who has been locked away in isolation for a few years, and when she is finally taken out of isolation, where she has been completely sensory deprived, she finds out that Voldemort has started a magical breeding program because the children of wizards aren't as powerful as the previous generations. So she is going to be given to the High Reeve, Voldemort's second in command, in the hopes that he will put a baby inside of her. And we find out that the High Reeve is actually Draco Malfoy. And the story goes from there, and it is the best Dramini fanfic I've ever read. Now, I've only read 3, so it's not very many. I will say Love in a Time of a Zombie Apocalypse is a really close second favorite of the year. That book is just as good. Draco is a little bit less intense, and it does have a lot more action, but overall Manacled won by like a little bit. But I have been loving fan fiction. If you have not checked it out, you should. Jen from the Book Refuge does a lot with fanfic, so does Tiff from Tiff Talks Pages. And yeah, I just can't wait to read more fanfic in 2024. All right, guys, those were all of your favorite books of the year. If your favorite book was not mentioned, please let me know down in the comments below. I love getting recommendations from you guys. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.